Welcome to the Biotech Startups podcast by Exceeder. Join us as we speak with first-time founders, serial entrepreneurs, and experienced investors about the challenges and triumphs of running a biotech startup, from pre-seed to IPO, with your host, Jon Chee. In our last episode, we spoke with Barbara Alcaraz Silva about transitioning from academia to entrepreneurship, co-founding a biotech company, and later mentoring and advising entrepreneurs, guiding them through the challenges of early-stage company building. If you missed it, be sure to go back and listen to part 3. In part 4, we talk with Barbara about her unexpected pivot into banking, joining SVB to support startups despite having no previous banking experience, and how her background in life sciences and entrepreneurship helped her excel, eventually leading to a role at JP Morgan. We also discuss the importance of mentorship, resilience, and seizing unexpected opportunities. Barbara offers insights into supporting startups and navigating the challenges of building a career in both science and finance throughout the episode.
How did your next opportunity, like you mentioned that you started to make a pivot eventually. How did that pivot come for you?
Yeah, so very interesting because, through life sciences angels, I was like, for sure, I want to become an investor. Um, I want to join a fund. So I started interviewing and exploring, and, I did that for a while. I wasn't finding the right fit per se, but through that process, and different partners reach out. That was also law firms, financial institutions, specifically one financial institution at the time reached out to me and they were like, "Hey, we have an opportunity for you." And I was a little bit confused because I never considered banking, to be honest, as a career path. Um, and I was like thinking, am I, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna be working in sending wires? I mean, please explain to me what am I gonna do in a bank?
Exactly. Yeah.
With my PhD in scientific,
Yeah.
career. And it was great because then it was supporting startups. So
Yep.
all this time, all the work that I have done, in even connecting founders prior to, being part of life sciences angels, because that's what I did when I was, creating my company. That's literally what I needed to build at this financial institution. So somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn. I guess they heard of me, and then I will run into different partners in different networking events. So I decided to give it a try. So that's when, I started my interview process with SVB. And it was interesting because like the lab that I joined at UCSF, they also pitched to me and I was so confused because I was like, okay, I'm not trying so hard. Like I always
Yeah.
try so hard trying to
Yeah.
get into Stanford.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but it was just interesting. And yeah, I went through my interview process and incredible people. But it was, like they were pitching to me and they didn't ask too many questions about my background because, of course, everything is in your resume, right? And I guess they heard of me. They knew that I have the connectivity, the investor network, the founder network. Um, and I remember I was so confused out of my interviews because one day I had like 2 or 3 interviews in the same day. I walk into this specific club that I'm a member of in San Francisco, and I was just sitting at a table. Then next to me was another person, and we started chit chatting. And I told him that I was coming from an interview, and then he asked me what it was my background, what I was doing, and I literally went through the download. And he's like, "Wow, you sound like me like 15 years ago." And then I asked him, "So what do you do?" "Well, I'm an investor of this fund." And I'm like, "Oh, interesting. Tell me more." And we started chit chatting, and I said, "Look, this is the opportunity that I have. I don't know whether if I should take it." And he's like, "I love this bank. You should take it." And I was like, "Okay, interesting." And because of him, then I ended up joining the bank. And
Wow.
it's interesting because,
That's
now I
small
see
world.
him. Yeah, now I see him and he's like, "Oh, thanks to me, you have a
Yeah.
career
You
in
can thank
finance."
me for that. You can thank me for that.
But
That's
it was like, and it was assuring that no having somebody in the industry that literally guided me, because then he really told me like, okay, well, you have to decide your path. I think this opportunity is going to give you you're going to learn a lot. You're going to have the connectivity with more startups with different funds, and maybe you can decide what you want to do after, but definitely give it a try. And I was like, okay, well, I'll give it a try. And then I said, I put myself a deadline, like a timeline, not
yep.
deadline, a timeline. And I said, well, within 6 months, if I don't like it, then I'm gonna, find something else. Well, I ended up staying there for quite some time, 5 years, and
Yeah.
it was great because then I had the opportunity to build an entire team. I had a lot of direct reports, and having that connectivity of bringing founders, working with investors, learning the finance, because again, I joined with no banking experience whatsoever, so it was super critical for my career there. So
And
yeah.
I love that because Exeter is an equipment leasing company, but I had no traditional finance or lease training experience. I was just a bench scientist. So, but the thing is, I think that's like beautiful about that is that when you come in with fresh eyes, there's like no back, like banking is an ancient business. And if you've been trained within, and there's nothing wrong being trained within, the traditional banking kind of curriculum, but coming as a kind of like an outsider, a scientist, like, and like myself, I felt the same way. You can bring fresh eyes and you can start thinking from first principles. How would I want, for you, probably a banking experience, for me, a leasing experience? What would I want, or what would my colleagues want, and how can I cater to them? So that's really interesting.
And I think it's another point is that as PhDs or scientists, we don't think about other paths, right? Like you can mold your career because you do have the expertise, and it's like, where can I apply my expertise? And it's across different industries, to be
Yep.
honest. And that's something that I learned, and it was incredible because I had this, bubble of expertise that, I was able to support an
Yep.
institution with that. And in return, I gained banking experience, right?
Yep.
I mean, not as depth, such a deep banking experience, but then I understood most of it. And at the end of the day, it was building teams, building a
Yep.
team, and putting people together. And as founders and entrepreneurs, you always end up doing that. So you can do it
Absolutely.
across different industries.
And I think, a lot of the time as as folks are like wrapping up their grad studies, you can feel a lot of existential dread. Right. What's next? Like there's only a finite amount of professorships available, particularly tenured spots. So
And
that's
John,
like,
you know what? That was back in our time because right now there's so many programs.
yeah, exactly. Maybe we're dating ourselves right now, but I
No,
felt
I mean,
dread.
like, I'm incredible. Like, I'm not, I mean, cut
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
I'm surprised of the amount of support because now grad students, they go and do so many things. They
Yep.
spin up their own research, they join another program, like you have heard of Nucleate, which is
Yep.
a graduate-led program, like either to find an industry job or to create your own company. That didn't exist in
No,
our like,
not at
it took me
all.
all the way until my postdoc for me to build a company.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not because I got into this specific program, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So, yeah,
That and
it's
that's I feel the exact same way, and we're big fans of Nucleate over here and big supporters of them. And because it's frankly what I wish I had back then, or at least I didn't know. There was like a asymmetric information situation where I literally thought I was like, I'm either I have to be a professor or
yes,
I got to go work at big pharma, which
exactly. That was
are
it.
that was it. That was it.
That was it.
And those are still paths. Those are still paths. But now there's like
So
tons of
many.
so
I
many
mean,
more
you can
paths.
go into patent law. I mean, there's so many, so many. And it's so funny because that you mentioning one specific program. I mean, there's so many like women in bio. I was
Yep.
part of women in bio as well. And there is another organization here in the Bay Area that is also women led, that are scientists, PhDs,
Cool.
that, similar to Nucleate, but for women.
Yep.
So it's so many programs that I wish, I
Yeah.
had
I'm
access to
jealous.
that.
Super
Um,
jealous.
yeah. So anyways, but
Yeah.
good for them. They
Yeah.
have
And
support.
and so as so you're at SVB and you're, can you talk a lot about the early days about establishing the life science practice? Like, how was that for you? Obviously, it was like there was a lot to learn, but like SVB,
Yeah,
like
and
life
that
science practice is
practice
big.
was established, right?
Okay, got it.
'Cause the bank was, you know, around for a while, and that group was established. What it wasn't established was the early stage arm.
Got it.
Uh, we were a very small team, and I was the only one in San Francisco. And again, I found myself with a great opportunity, and like,
Yep.
here you go,
Yep.
go
Yep.
figure it out.
Yep. Yep.
Same with my PhD, same when you were
Yep.
building a company. And I wouldn't say that it was difficult. I mean, like, the resources were incredible. The culture was great, and it's different from academia, right? Like in
Yep.
academia, you can run into a situation that you have an amazing lab, or it's super supportive, or not, right?
Yep.
And corporate out there, you have to be nice,
Yep. Yep.
because people track you, right?
Yep.
Like that's part of
Absolutely.
your performance.
Yep.
Um, and I think because I knew a few colleagues before joining, that they were also guiding me through the process. They were the ones who guided me and taught me most of the tools and the resources. So it was super helpful. And I think that's why I kind of like speed it up a little bit. And I learned the basics, like literally from opening accounts, and like who is the team, and like the basics that, I mean, you have to learn that, because if you're in a financial institutions, you need to learn every single aspect of it. So
Absolutely.
it was fun. I have to say, lots of learning. Uh and definitely, I had to use my skills a lot. And the funny thing is, like, I still was so focused on being a scientist that
Yep.
every time that I will bring a company, I will literally like do a super
Right.
detailed
Yeah.
diligence, like, "Why? Tell me about your
Can't turn it
technology."
off. You can't
And
turn
then
it off.
I realized, "Wait a minute, this is not my position anymore."
Yeah.
It took me some time to transition that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the founders and, partners, I mean, they do appreciate that, right?
Yep.
Because, at the end of the day, it's providing feedback, or just showing interest that you care about what they're building, right?
Yep.
Um, so the experience was great. Of course, I had the opportunity to build a team there, manage people. Like, I'm not like I managed before, because before is a very small team, and now I had a pretty large team. I had great mentors, internal and external. And it got into a point that I was like, you know what? I love what I'm learning, but I became very like plateau.
Mhm.
Through my career, I was always like looking for the next thing, and
Yep.
learning something from organic chemistry, neuroscience to biology. And I was like, okay, I need to figure out what I want to do next. And I remember at some point I had an interest for private equity.
Oh, okay. My
So I
co-founder's
know,
in private equity, so yeah. So
so so different. And I was like debating whether if I should really go into private equity or join a hedge fund.
mhm.
Very different,
Very
but
different. So
but
different.
very different. And I remember, like, doing again my informational interviews with the partners, friends, you know, going back to Eric,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
now that
Hey.
you're now that you're an investor.
Yeah. 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 Tell me. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, with great people. And they will literally say to me, like, Barbara, you can just go and do whatever you want, because then it wasn't only private equity. Yeah, I was like thinking, like, what if I want to go back and run a company? What if I actually go back and join a real fund and become an investor? So I was exploring that for a while, and like had no banking in my mind, to be honest, because I was like, okay, I learned this. I just want to explore something else. And I gave myself a year to do all the studying and research for
Yep.
private equity, because, I was talking to my mentors like, Barbara, you technically as are going to start as an analyst.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but And I'm like, okay, I'm giving myself a year to build a network and
Yep.
to do all the research and studying and like, and of course, the transition, I took some time to really figure it out. And
Yep.
then I kind of like stopped and I said, okay, I'm just gonna continue to what I'm doing. And then if eventually there an opportunity comes, then that will be great. But at the end of the day, what I learned is I wasn't passionate about all those opportunities because there was a fund that they wanted me to be the CEO of one of their startups. And I was excited. I was super excited about the project, but then eventually it died on me. And I was like, when you know what you want to do, you know really well. You
Yep.
have a passion and you're going
Yep.
to pursue that. And the fact that, I mean, I had so many opportunities, like different funds, like different startups, more on the operating side of things. Different financial institutions. And I was like, I don't know. And then, eventually I transitioned. And the reason that I transitioned because it was like incredible.
Yep.
Like the people, the talent, the opportunity. So I never thought that I was gonna go back to into banking because at that point I was like, I'm giving it up.
Yeah.
So and
And
then
I think it's important though, like, it's kind of, again, it's like going back to the importance of like learning what you like and what you don't like, and then
yes,
listening to yourself and not, you know, so, everyone second guesses themselves, but like when you feel that passion and like this feels right,
yeah.
it tends to be the right call to listen to that.
Completely, and it's also a lot to do with your mentor network.
Yep.
I've had a lot of external mentors, not necessarily mentors from work, because I think we do have a tendency of having, oh, my our mentors at work, and I had a lot of external mentors in these different disciplines, and one of my mentors when I was like really figuring out, because I had great opportunities. At the time, I was like one the CEO position of this startup, then it was a small fintech, and the other one was a fund, and then a few other financial institutions. And my mentor, he runs, he's you know, he's literally an LP. He has manages a funds to funds, right? And he's the board there, and very knowledgeable. And once in a while, we chit chat, and he's like, Barbara, he said to me, Barbara, like you have done great in this industry. If you want to become a leader into the industry, you need to figure out where is the best place where you can grow, right? And that's stuck in the back of my mind. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. But then again, I was like so stubborn because I really want to do PE.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
He's like, well, you're gonna start as an analyst. And I'm
Yeah. And
like,
you're like,
okay.
I don't know. Yeah.
I know, but then when I had all these opportunities, then I made the decision, but it was super easy. I was
Yep.
like, you know what? I'll go with the greatest opportunity, the talent, the support, and that's how I ended up now at JP Morgan. And and it's interesting because I saw myself, I'm not gonna go back into finance. I, learned what I had to learn. But it's been, it's an incredible journey because for me, the role that I had for many years as I see my career has been, as I said, I'm like literally Switzerland
Yep.
because I don't take any sides. I'm always supporting the investors. I'm always supporting the founders and supporting the industry. And I love that, because when you're an investor, you said no to a lot of people and it's hard and you don't have time to give feedback. Um, and the other way around, because investors are also pitching their own funds, right?
Yep.
So finding a position that you can use your expertise and and support the ecosystem, it's incredible. And I'm being
And
enjoy
rare.
yeah, and
And it's
very
rare.
rare.
It's
It's
rare.
very rare. Yeah,
Like,
I agree.
I can see how it's like your journey. It's a culmination of you mentioned kind of like the kind of disparate skill sets you've been acquiring, but the culmination of this into your role at JP Morgan I can see how it can benefit all the stakeholders. And then it
Yes.
even goes back to your project management experience at UCSF. It's like, it's one thing to work with Kaiser, it's another thing to work with Harvard, very
Mhm.
different institutions.
Completely different.
How do
Yeah.
you manage
For
that?
nonprofits or, yeah, smaller institutions. Yeah,
And
exactly.
so, you decided to, you're inspired by the team at JP Morgan, the support, the resource. Can you, maybe obviously JP Morgan's a household name, but can you talk a little bit about what makes JP Morgan, in your opinion, a standout bank? And maybe we can then double click on your specific group.
I mean, the fact that, as a bank, we aiming to be the leader of innovation economy, right? The bank has been around for so long. The longevity, the people, it's incredible. Like, I feel like for me personally, like if you want to go into finance, you need to pick the best of the best. And at the end of the day, I feel like we always have to have our risk flag so high, because it's a large institution. So you have people that are so acquainted with specific skill sets, and you're learning a lot from them, right?
Yep.
So, at the end of the day, that was the main decision for me. And just to tell you a little bit more about my role, so it's a little bit clearer what I do, and then we can go on more about explaining about the
Yep.
bank. So I lead the national team for startup banking, life sciences, and healthcare. And our goal is to bring startups into our banking platform. The most simplistic way that I can put it in is think of my team as the funnel for the commercial bank, right? Because my team, we do have expertise, and we're out there looking for the most interesting opportunities, the most interesting startups that we can be supportive and we can be helpful. And there's different types of founders, like the serial entrepreneur who
Yep.
knows what they need to do, and they only need a solid bank. So
Yep.
we have all the products and we have all the support. And then there is a first time founder who doesn't even know what to do.
Yep.
It doesn't even know who are the investors out there.
Yep.
And it's like, what else? I mean, besides applying for grants, what else do I need to do? Like, okay, have you managed your cap table? And that's where we also come in and support, because we serve more as advisors. And part of our value proof is to adding those skill sets into the teams that we're working with, into the founders team, right? So,
Yep.
and we have within my team, we have different expertise. I have bankers that have a very extraordinary banking experience, and then I have people that have done business development, and they have worked in a fund, or they were founders before. And one of the highlights of my team is I always love sharing the background of one of my bankers. Um, she manages our New England market, and she has an MD. Was born and raised in China. She got her MD, then moved to the US, got a master's, then did a postdoc at MD Anderson, and eventually, like me, she decided, okay, now I'm going to do something else. She went into banking and spent 18 years in the banking industry in different sectors and different business units. She worked in minority entrepreneurship in the bank. And when I was building the team at JP Morgan, um, I got a hold of her because somebody else told me. I literally did a big search to find people with the most amazing skills that I also wanted to learn from. And I found Claire, and I told her about the opportunity, and it was like chemistry.
Yep.
Like, we
Yep.
both got so excited because for her, it was like, oh my God, I'm finally get to merge my two worlds into one. So,
Very cool.
and like everybody else in the team, they do have amazing expertise and skill sets. And for me, I'm just honored to manage the team,
Yeah,
but also to work with them and to
absolutely.
deliver the value to the industry, right? So, and that's the talent that we have at, JP Morgan, and it's incredible. Every day you're learning.
And that, there's a bunch of directions I want to go with this, but I'll say this: it is unique to have individuals like yourself who have a PhD postdoc, folks who have an MD, who can vouch for this, like kind of be understand the science, understand what you're doing, and actually kind of like not just at a surface level, but you're mentioning like you still had sometimes early days still had your diligence cap on. You're like, oh, like, and that's rare because like I think with any partner, again, it's like a co-founder, there needs to be this like understanding, real understanding, so you can effectively communicate with each other. And when you can effectively communicate, you can better serve. And I've always thought about it from that perspective at Exceeder too. We're former scientists as well, like teammates worked at Janssen, Eppendorf, Public Library of Science.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So we're all like ex-scientists. And so that's why I feel like a kindred spirit with you when I hear this, is because if I was starting a biotech startup or life science startup, more broadly speaking, I would want to bank with someone who actually understands, and not to name any names out there, but like as I was like figuring out, who to bank with, when someone was like, you guys lease Bunsen burners? And I'm like, no, not Bunsen burners, like flow cytometers. But
Right.
right. So, and like exactly, you talking about the Beckman Institute and lasers, like that stuff, right? Like cell sorting
Yeah.
type stuff. And so I think it's incredibly important because when you have someone who can empathize and understand your needs, again, you can better serve. And something that really stood out to me about your, talking about your decision to choose JPM is the network and the history. And I'm going to imagine that if you want, like, if someone who's banking with JPM wants to be connected with XYZ, investor, fund, potential customer, potential partner, they're probably somewhere in your team or maybe at the broader bank where you can make a connection, which I think is incredibly valuable because you talked about how important it is to find the right mentors and have the right network. So that like really stands out to me because
Yeah.
it's not just transactional. It's like, how can we leverage our scale network to the advantage of
Yeah.
investor or, startup?
And also what we have developed, what the bank has developed is incredible tools that they can make that connectivity. Right. So because think about all the people that they reach out to me and I'm like, I don't have the time to be honest, because I'm more internal
Yeah.
managing a lot of people,
Yeah.
working on the strategy, of course, being out there supporting the ecosystem,
Yep.
talking about trends. Um, so the bank has developed incredible tools of depending of where you are in your journey, right? Because
Yep.
it's not only early stage, it's a growth. And, we have taken all the companies, some of the companies all the way to IPO. So it's depending of the stage and who is your banker, then there's always, a way of finding a solution and, adding additional products. So, and the bank has become so good at it.
Absolutely. And I think too, is that I'm thinking about experiences at Exceeder where I'll tell you about like a bad customer experience. And this is for software, not banking, but I hate it when I have to like, I keep getting handed off
Yeah.
when and I'm like, you forgot everything about us. And now I have to like, kind of like reacclimate you to what Exceeder does. And, if we outgrow a certain group, then, I'm out in the wilderness, but I can't imagine most companies are going to outgrow JP Morgan. Right. So it's like, you can be there supportive every step of the way.
Yeah.
Which, and the reason why for me, I think that's important is because as an early stage company, there's a bunch of things that you really, really need to focus on. And the best allocation of your time might not be trying to create this Rolodex from scratch. So how can we tap into, JP Morgan's Rolodex and services, and whether it's like early stage funding, growth stage funding, eventual IPO and or M&A, JPM, you're there.
We will, and definitely, I mean, I think that was the idea of also, having our team and our value prop is like, will we be there for you? And like, we're so interconnected, right? Because everybody thinks about JP Morgan. JP Morgan is massive, yes, for sure, but we're so interconnected. Like, we know where you belong or should belong. Because what if a growth stage company comes to me? I'm like, okay, where are you?
Yep.
in, a specific region. How much are you raising? How much have you raised? What are your needs? It will find you a home.
Yep.
So that interconnectivity is super helpful, like, and that's part of my role, like to also understand who are the other partners and business units, so then I can support the companies that come into our platform because, like maybe we have a great client that is about to close a Series A and they need another investor. Guess what? We have a fund. Let's make an introduction and see if it's a fit.
Yep.
Or it's a software company that already has revenue and they're looking for additional investors. Let's put you into a fundraising platform. So, I mean, there's multiple avenues that, like, as long as you have one point of contact, and it's not perfect though, I have to be honest, because, if you end up getting an introduction with somebody who's new and joined the firm and they're getting acclimated, but there's always the support there. So, and that's one of the things that I love the most because for me coming in, it wasn't overwhelming. It's been a great experience to be honest, because it's like everybody like getting to know all the research partners, all the tools, all the support that we can give to the industry, like not only to the founders, to the investors, to nonprofits. I mean, like we're banking everybody out there. We do personal banking. So it's an entire life cycle, not only for the founder, but also on their personal banking. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's for me is like, it's the take homes is like just that personal element of like just that whoever's on the other side just truly knowing and caring. And I was like thinking about when I like we found a great home in a software. We use HubSpot for our CRM, but like
Oh, nice.
so we use HubSpot, and I just remember how painful it was to outgrow the first kind of CRM instance that we had. And we need to find a place where we can find that home. And in this instance, it was HubSpot was our home, and they've been fantastic partners with us. But like exactly what you said, like having the kind of single point of contact that cares and can help plug
Yeah.
in the right people and get you the services and support you need is
And
critical.
with the appropriate expertise too, right?
Yeah.
Because, we have founders that is like, oh my God, I don't care how much you know about the scientific world. I just need an expert in banking. Perfect. There
Yep.
you go. You're the best client.
Yeah. Exactly. And
Yeah,
exactly. And just catering it. So I
exactly.
really, really like that approach.
Yeah,
And it's refreshing, honestly, because
yeah.
it's not every day that you kind of get that white glove service. So, as you are thinking about your team and the next 1 to 2 years, what's in store for you and your team?
Yeah, definitely. So my team is growing. I'm also hiring, by the way. So
Shouts out if you
yes,
are.
please. I love talent. So would like to speak with you if you happen to have a banking background, not necessarily, but if you want to learn about banking and have a life sciences background. So, we continue to grow. We cover the entire country. There's specific team members that are managing large regions in the US. So, you know, we are excited because there's a lot of interest. We have great companies. So we're pretty busy. For the next couple of years, definitely will be steady growth. I mean, we have grown so fast, so quickly. Um, so it will be mostly bringing the support for that, right? And for me, it's developing the talent because again, it's incredible people that join the team. So making sure that they have the opportunity to grow, that they become acclimated with the regions because then you become an expert, right? Like Boston is so different from San Francisco.
So different.
And the bankers, they are so plugged in and they understand the sectors and their companies. So it's like, um, that's our pretty much our goal to continue to deliver value and work with specific partners as well. So yeah, I will say growth. And for me, it's, continue to grow and develop and continue to learn from all the incredible people at the firm. I think that I've been now at JP Morgan for a year, and it's incredible how much we have done as a firm, and how much I have learned personally. Like, it's like going into this mini MBA
Yeah.
where it's actually they push you to like, okay, just build out your team,
Yeah.
get to know every single business unit and like and support all these companies. And
Yeah.
technically that's what I did when I joined. I was like, oh, okay, great.
And I was going to
Amazing.
say, you're very good at that. Like getting put into the deep end and then just sticking the landing. Just like,
And building from there.
yeah,
So,
very
but
cool.
again, it's because of the support of the incredible people. Like, my manager, it's great. His manager, it's incredible. I mean, she's a woman. And another thing that I have not mentioned is like I was so impressed, like when I joined JP Morgan, like how many women leaders are in the firm. I was like, oh my God, this is yes for
Yeah,
me. And that was
super important.
yeah,
Super
super,
critically important.
super
Is
important.
not
So
not something,
yeah, yeah,
finding representation is,
exactly.
it's hard to find,
Yeah.
is rare. So that's amazing to hear. And I just want to say thank you for all your time. This is like so like one, I'm super pumped up to hear about your journey. And also just like for anyone who might be listening who kind of may feel like a bit aimless and figuring out what do they want to do, and knowing that, look, there is no set, there are no rules. Like you can really do it if you really wanted to. And
Yeah,
sometimes it just takes that email to it's like, hey, I want to join your fellowship in London, and
exactly.
it can
And
work.
finding mentors that, and by the way, I did not say about the people that I got a lot of no's too. Like I remember reaching out to a lot of people that I wanted them to be mentors, never reply. So, and it's okay,
Yep,
nothing is perfect. So eventually you will find somebody who will support you and will guide you, or you will find your way, right? So, but anyways,
absolutely.
happy
That's
to support
Yeah,
any way I
absolutely.
can.
So in traditional closing fashion for the podcast, there are two questions we like to round things out. So first, would you like to give any shout outs to anyone who supported you along the way? And I know you've mentioned a few already, but are
Yeah,
there any others?
of course, my mother.
Yes,
She was
yes,
the one who brought me into this country and like throw me into a system that I didn't know,
yeah,
right? And because of her and her, you know, sacrifice, I am where I am right now, and it's the same as my sister. So I think my mom has been my biggest advocator, mentor, driver, and of course, all the mentors that I had along the way, like Mike Mulligan, Michael Burns, who passed, um, John Murnane, and my current manager, and that amazing person that I'm gonna email at some point and send him a text, who literally told me, Barbara, you have built something great, just make it better somewhere else.
yep, yep,
So,
yep. Sometimes
because
that's all
of
you
him,
need.
I went into continue my journey in banking.
Yeah,
Otherwise, I'd probably be an analyst in a PE fund
yeah,
or
yeah.
in a hedge fund.
Sometimes you just need a little nudge. That's all you need. That's sometimes all it
Exactly.
takes.
So,
And
great people.
and if you're looking back, if you can give any advice to your 21-year-old self, what would it be?
That's interesting. I still was on my American dream, and I wish I had continued that. I mean, maybe I haven't gone through my American dream, I don't know, but be resilient, persistent, because I think I went into different ways. And sometimes I did that because I was afraid or I wasn't sure and I didn't want to say no. And sometimes saying no, it's super important.
Yeah.
But resilience, like, just continue or building that resilience and everything is gonna be fine. Everything is gonna be fine. So
And
yeah.
honestly, that's sometimes all you need to hear, is that it will work itself out.
Yeah.
And I think, I can't think of another way to round this out. You've been so generous with your time, Barbara.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you. Such a pleasure. I mean, I enjoy this. And another thing is like this is the first time that I'm sharing my personal journey. I have shared it with, close friends and colleagues, but I had never shared it so lively and outside the
You're
doors.
you're so
So
generous,
thank you.
and
So I
thank you.
appreciate it.
Yeah, and no, thank you for being open to having this conversation with me. And I could go for hours and hours with you. And so maybe, we'll do another one and talk about what are
Another
the cool
time.
developments. Yeah, for another time.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
We
we'll
can
grab
talk about the
coffee.
industry, the market, what we have seen. So much cool stuff.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, Barbara, thank you, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
That's all for this episode of the Biotech Startups podcast. We hope you enjoyed our 4-part series with Barbara Alcaraz Silva. Be sure to tune into our next series with Malik Jai, CEO and founder at Ecotone AI, a company with a vision of AI-designed medicines to cure rare inherited diseases. Malik is also co-founder of Genetic Leap, formerly known as Genetic Intelligence, a company that is innovating at the cutting edge of AI and RNA genetic medicine to redefine drug development and more quickly address the health needs of millions of people. Before his transition into entrepreneurship and industry, he was a senior scientist at Columbia University, where he discovered multiple C. elegans genes related to neural ensheathment and sensation of touch in the laboratory of Nobel Prize winner Marty Shafee. Malik's diverse experience and deep expertise in neuroscience, AI, and biotech entrepreneurship makes his conversation one that founders won't want to miss. The Biotech Startups podcast is produced by Exceeder. Don't want to miss an episode? Search for the Biotech Startups podcast wherever you get your podcasts and click subscribe. Exceeder provides research labs with equipment leases on founder-friendly terms to support paths to exceptional outcomes. To learn more, visit our website www.exceder.com. On behalf of the team here at Exceeder, thanks for listening. The Biotech Startups podcast provides general insights into the life science sector through the experiences of its guests. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from the podcast is at the user's own risk. The views expressed by the participants are their own and are not the views of Exceeder or sponsors. No reference to any product, service, or company in the podcast is an endorsement by Exceeder or its guests.